Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Evanina, you were the head of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center. In 2018, DOJ required state-sponsored media outlets like Xinhua News and China Global Television Network to register as foreign agents. Yet, when Americans visit those websites, when Americans read or listen to watch those stories, there isn't even the most basic labeling information for the consumer that are visiting a foreign agent-registered news site. This is true for Russia, too. Russian media outlets like Sputnik that run influence operations through radio shows in the U.S. are forced to register as foreign agents by DOJ, but no one notifies the Americans who are listening to the shows or who are reading their stories. And I think that's really irresponsible. Why is the burden on the U.S. consumer to go to the DOJ website to hunt down FARA filing forms to know where they're getting their information?
Senator, thanks for the question. And I think you were getting at the heart of what I believe to be the new frontier, which is malign foreign influence. And I think when we look at how countries like China and Russia facilitate their influence here, it starts with media. It manipulates social media, TV stations, newspaper, print, and we are unable to see it. And I will proffer that the U.S. government's inability to look at media due to constitutional issues provides a vast gaping hole for who should do that, right? I think it's unfair, as you said, for constituents to understand, and they're not going to go to DOJ website, but we don't have, I would reference, the State Department has a global engagement center. We don't have a domestic engagement center to help advise and inform Americans as to how to identify where that influence is and what might be true or what might not be true from that website. So I do think we have a hole to fill with respect to understanding malign foreign influence to help Americans' everyday living, technology, but also with elections in the future.
Where would you place that domestic engagement center? Under what agency?
Well, I would have to think more on that, Senator, but off the top of my head, I would say it would have to be partly in the intelligence community where it can garner the most real-time actionable intelligence from our collection. At the same time, it has to have a vehicle that could produce that intelligence unclassified to the consumers around America.
Right, because shouldn't this basic foreign agent information be affirmatively provided to American consumers so they can make informed decisions about where the foreign state-sponsored news is actually coming from?
Yes, and to that point, I think if you look at things from an agency perspective of the goals, responsibilities, and the agency's names, I would say the Department of Homeland Security would be the right nomenclature for that kind of role.
So do you think that FARA needs to be strengthened or clarified in some of those loopholes that allow China and others to push their misinformation without any consumer protection notice?
Yes, I do think that any of these issues, whether it be FARA or FIRMA or CFIUS, should be looked at every year because the technology moves and how we see our adversaries change their tactics based upon legislation we employ or policies. We have to update that on a year-by-year basis to understand how China or Russia or Iran has revectored their influence so we can act accordingly.
I think that also should apply in some respects to our platforms, our social media platforms, because especially in a current example like the debate about vaccinations, a lot of Chinese and Russians are actively trying to mislead Americans. And I think there has to be some responsibility to the purveyors of this information to have a way to know if they are foreign agents. Do you agree?
I completely agree. And I look back the last year or so, as Mr. Pottinger had referenced, and as I went through the election, the ability to siphon through malign foreign influence and messages that are factually not correct is a very difficult venue. And when we look at the abilities of our adversaries, Russia and China, to no longer seed information here, but to use our own information to amplify for other Americans, takes on its own new weight of a really difficult obstacle to be able to do that.
Ms. Puglisi, obviously foreign adversaries have tried to influence our country for a very long time. This is nothing new. Russia has attempted to steal our technology through investments, through exchange students, through cyber operations, attempted to recruit, tried to intimidate, stifle dissent, unflattering narratives, as does China. So obviously this is problematic and serious, but the question is, what aspects of this threat are new? And is it simply a question of scale and breadth of China's operations and theft of trade secrets that differentiate it? And how should these distinctions shape our strategy and counter their efforts?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I would say the aspects that are new is that it's more and more in the civilian space. And I think if you raise the issue of the Soviet Union, when we look back on that, it was very heavily military focused. And some of my earlier comments about how our traditional structure of CI is focused on intelligence officers, on things that were completely illegal, things that have a direct military application. And the way China targets our technologies and the way it leverages its own diaspora, I think is something that's very new. It's also the scale and scope and the fact that these are central government programs that have been in place for decades, that focus on the influence piece, the civil technology piece, and really target the gray areas of our civil society. And you pair that with the largest crackdown on civil society that we're seeing in China under Xi, and it's a really toxic mix.
Thank you.